into museums so we can talk about them. And then obviously we had furlough, the largest fiscal intervention known to this country. Loads of stuff going on in that diversity field. Out of that, you know, we've had loads of phrases that some of us know, some of us don't know, some of us feel a little bit uncomfortable with. Systemic racism was a big thing that came out. And I think trying to understand and get to grips with the pillars of systemic racism are really, really important and complex at the same time. If we break these 4 pillars down just for 1 minute, institutional, which most people in the UK know, I've heard of institutional racism through the Macpherson report and the murder of Stephen Lawrence. What a lot of people don't know is the structural, which is often about a number of institutions rubbing up against each other. So if you look at, say, the Windrush scandal, the Home Office and the police, it was not institutional, that's one company, it was structural. The interpersonal, which is, you know, often in the music industry, we know women live daily lives with microaggressions, or have lived 20 years of their lives with microaggressions. That's the interpersonal and the unconscious, the stuff that perhaps we're not even aware of. So, you know, these are the 4 components of systemic racism, and we've just got to build trust with all these communities that we've affected. Not we as individuals, but the system has affected, unfortunately. I really believe this thing that we call diversity and inclusion and equity, I think we should look at it as an input for growth, an input for change, rather than an output like CSR. So if we look at diversity and inclusion as the new algorithm for growth and rebuilding our communities and our businesses. And I always say to people, don't listen to what I've got to say, or don't listen to these PowerPoints. Follow the evidence, follow the data. We know you work in schools, and we know that there's a lot of data. You know, the McKinsey explicitly, it shows you that having more women in your company is better for the bottom line. And, you know, having more diverse voices is better for the bottom line. So the data is glaringly obvious. You know, we need to make sure that we build better things that are going on in our learning campuses. We're also aware that learning styles are changing. There's been major advancement in AI, and technology is changing, but also consumption and how people consume. We in the music industry now, we tend to get a lot of our data from a game called Roblox. You know, 10 years ago, we were listening in on the kids at the back of the bus who were playing music and going, what are these kids listening to? Is this going to be big? Now it's all about gaming. So it's just that thing of the changing style and changing nature of an art form or a learning style. We know that schools are not irrelevant, but we also want them to be more relevant. Relevant to their local communities, relevant to learning styles, and making sure that everybody feels really comfortable about coming to that place and getting something really, really solid. We don't want to create these islands away from communities. And we know that some schools are islands that are really disconnected to those particular places that they live and breathe. We're also aware that if we don't consider the diversity of people and placemaking, we become irrelevant. And, you know, and we sit outside the normal of people's daily lives. We just need to check our own echo chamber. And I think everybody's got an echo chamber. I have, you have. Sometimes we need to make sure that we have difference to really challenge what's going on. We don't want to create any more white elephants anywhere. Whilst in 2020, we were obviously looking at equality, equity, and justice, I think no longer can we just talk about these things. I think the world is moving towards an anti-racist agenda. And some of you may say, well, what the hell does that mean? And for us, this is just about action against systemic racism. This is the stuff that we talk about in terms of systems change. So if we have systemic racism, and I'm not saying your schools are engulfed with systemic racism, I'm just saying if there is systemic racism out there, we have to have a systems approach rather than a project approach. And unlike the passive stance of non-racism, which most schools and arts organizations are absolutely committed to, I think anti-racism, it just shifts the dial from passive to active. And what that means is it requires consistent, committed, and targeted action and attention. And I think this will be the norm soon. I really do. We have to, again, deal with phrases that make us feel uncomfortable. I always start off with male privilege. I'm a man, I have male privilege. I have to accept that. We have to identify one's own privilege and use this to eradicate discrimination. So we basically, we need more men to talk about gender pay gap. It's really simple. And we need, people, we need non-disabled people to talk about disability. For me, this is, common sense, but we need to really push this agenda forward. And if we are moving to an anti-racist agenda, last year there was a lot of unconscious bias training. Perhaps that was phase one in our learning journey. Perhaps we need to, look at some resources and move the dial and say, well, okay, cool. Unconscious bias is one, but anti-racist is two. Again, these are suggestions, and these are things that I think are about to happen. Apologies about this slide, because I know you can't see the figures, but this is something that we developed in the music industry. We took some data, we did a report, and what we found was, if in the music industry, if you're a woman, you get paid less. And the chart on the right-hand side shows you the variable between men and women. If you're from a diverse community, you also get paid less. So if you're a Black woman, if you take an intersectional perspective, it's a double whammy. That's in the music industry. I don't know what's like in schools. Now, I believe we need to really take that intersectional debate across all the protected characteristics. And also the one thing that's not in the room, which is class. I found out two alarming statistics only 6 months ago. The first was 14 million people in this country consider themselves to have a disability. I didn't know that. And 12.5% in the US of youth consider themselves to be non-binary or trans. So these are the complex conversations and that we have to have, and we have to talk about openly in safe spaces. And if we don't, we're very, very aware that the far right is very well organized. As citizens who care beyond ourselves, and teachers and arts advocates, we need to organize ourselves a little bit better. You can see what's going on, not just in places like Brazil and America, but just the kind of eradication of arts in the curriculum. We need to have a counter argument against the far right. And I'm aware that sometimes it can look, large scale systems change. It can look a little bit overwhelming, and perhaps even scary. Do I have the right support in my school, in my network? Am I using the right language? Am I moving at the pace that we need to? I just think you guys as cultural champions, you've got a bit of a moment to lead beyond authority, and also you've got the responsibility to make the change, not only in the schools, but in your local areas. These are some companies that I think are doing some really, really interesting work in the kind of realm of diversity and inclusion. My favorite out of all of them is In Chorus. So I have no connection to any of them, but In Chorus, they use tech and data to track microaggressions. So sometimes if, and it's mainly, Unfortunately, it's mainly men to women, but there'll be now in the music industry a way of people to just jump on their phone and say, look, so-and-so said this to me just now, it's not acceptable. And it's a way of tracking microaggressions. I'm a massive fan of the small act, and I just believe that, you know, it's all about small acts, and the ripples occur through these small acts. The nudge, nudge, nurture concept I love. I took that from the environmentalists, and I think it really, really can work. What it can't be for you guys, and I don't believe it is for schools, is a PR exercise. This is more for sort of big companies and perhaps arts organizations. Organizations will be judged on how they act and audit and not how they communicate. This cannot be about your Marcom's lens. Otherwise, you will face reputational damage. And there's been reputational damage in companies already. This is the Commonwealth Games. They failed on diversity, unfortunately, but luckily we got them at that right place. You have City of Culture happening in your city. Is it reflective of the citizens of the city? Can you see yourselves in there? We couldn't see ourselves in the Commonwealth Games. There was 22 people who sat in the exec. They were all white. Oh, there was one black person. That's not acceptable, not in 2022. You will get called out because now people have got the capacity and the confidence. We really believe in impact and progress, and you guys are teachers, so you know about Ofsted and the infatuation with impact and progress, but this is also to do with diversity. Let's see how we can use this algorithm to have the impact and progress that we want. And we obviously need data. Data is not the only thing. We need to talk about lived experience. And this is something that we developed in the music industry. So there's no point in having a plan unless you have a way to really, really, really get into the granular of why you're doing stuff, and your commitment, and what good looks like and what poor looks like and what impact. We used a thing called Chloe. Obviously schools use different frameworks to audit and assess stuff. Obviously we don't want our boards to look like this, but some, in some arts organizations they used to, when actually these lot are the future. So we know about the diversity of Coventry, we know about the diversity of Birmingham. Let's start building those blocks to really represent all those things that we care about. I miss this guy's voice. We lost it for 4 years in America, and there's a couple of links that I'll forward to you as a group, just some interesting links that are worth reading around the curriculum. I think that you guys are in a unique position because you've got this authority, you've got this connectivity, and you care more. A couple of books that I would recommend you read. I've read them all, so I know if I can read them, I know you can read them. Matthew Said talks about your echo chambers. Gary Young looks at citizenship and what's it like to be British now. James Carr talks about Maori culture and rugby, and Richard Russell talks about Excel Records, which signed Adele and Dizzy Rascal. So some predictions for 2021, and this is quite global stuff, so it's not just for schools. Scrutiny and activism with regards to race equity will increase. I think national public institutions will set expectations on boards and execs. Companies that failed to have delivered on their promises for 2020 will face reputational damage. We said that already. We believe that there'll be some stuff around ethnic pay gap. FTSE companies will have to do better. The whole awareness around class and social mobility will increase, and the Biden-Harris camp will really push the race and intersectional agenda. I whizzed through that. Apologies if I spoke too quickly. I'm more than happy to take any questions. It's supposed to be a bit of a provocation, a bit of a push. I'm hoping that some part of it has touched you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Amo. I'm just going to give people an opportunity, if they want to put their question into the chat, please do. I was just going to start off, if there's anyone on our Cultural Education Partnership Steering Committee who has a question, that would be really useful too. But I was going to ask if you have any ways in or first steps that you might suggest for our teachers to raise this topic and start really helping to support and champion diverse young people at this time.
So I always say, create a safe space to have a really honest conversation. That's always the first thing. And these are quite complex things that we're talking about: race, protected characteristics, class, social mobility, fairness, representation, and safe space to have really honest and awkward conversations, and set a few tasks that are achievable, but with a timeline. So, don't say things like, yeah, we want to change stuff, because it means nothing. Yeah, I care. Well, we all care. So, doing things that are relevant to your area, your school, your city, with a timeline.
Thank you. That's really useful. I'm sure people do have lots of questions. I think the really important thing to say is that from here, the CCEP will be putting together a diversity and inclusion working group. So we have a commitment to starting those conversations and to involving as many people as possible in what comes out of those conversations, and the really practical and very focused steps that we hope will come out of those conversations as ways to support diversity across the cultural and the education sector, both in terms of the representation of the people who are running those organisations and teaching our young people, but also for the young people themselves. So a massive thank you, Amo, for helping us to really start thinking about the shape of that conversation, and perhaps we might be able to share some of the outcomes of that work with you at a later date and get your expert opinion about where we're going with it all. Brilliant.
Cool. I mean, as I said, if there's any questions, please fire away. I'm not an expert on diversity. We just do a lot of stuff in this field. I just want to say that. And I'm certainly not a teacher. So I know that working in schools is quite, being a cultural champion is a great thing to be, but also sometimes it can be quite difficult when people are slamming down maths and English down the throat. So, we need to protect the things that we really care about: the dancing, the theatre, the singing, all that stuff's really, really important.
Absolutely. And we've just had a really great comment in the chat to say, my child is both trans and disabled and is currently working on some of the larger projects for City of Culture and also outreach to secondary schools. They inspire me as a teacher and a parent every day. These are the young people who need to be communicating our school pupils to give them a true insight. And absolutely, I would agree. And youth voice is another focus that we will be coming on to in just a moment. Thank you so much, Amo. Everyone's saying it's very thought-provoking, really good at helping to stimulate the beginnings of those important conversations. So that's really great. Thank you so much. We're going to hand over to Andy Reeve from City of Culture now, who's going to give us a bit of an update about where things are at and what things are happening. So over to you, Andy, and I'll start your slides.
Thank you. Thanks, Sarah. After that kind of provocational, inspirational call to arms from Amo, I'm going to talk about web pages and stuff like that, but there's some slightly more prosaic things that you might be interested to know. So City of Culture is kind of really starting to get going. There have been several challenges, but not going to go into all of that. I'm just going to tell you a few highlights, not everything, some stuff coming up that you might be interested to know. The first thing is that we are at long last not far off getting a dedicated schools webpage on the City of Culture website, and I just wanted to flag that up with you. It's been a little while coming, but it's nearly there. So I don't know if you can see on the screen. Don't worry if you can't see detail. It's just a kind of proof that it's there, really. It's going to be divided into four main sections. One, a kind of what's on place at the moment. Most of you should know I put out an informal bulletin every 2 or 3 weeks or so. We just go back a slide. Thank you. So the 4 things are all shown here. This will be like the front page of the thing. So it will be a place to summarize stuff that you can get involved with, stuff to book, workshops, projects big or small, will all be there in a kind of rolling program. I will still continue to put out informal bulletins every couple of weeks, but much easier when stuff is there with booking dates and things. And I know that's what we've been missing, a little bit of clarity on what's coming up for the program. There will be a section that's dedicated to the CCEP, and which also just kind of seeks to promote and champion the cultural champions role a little bit. Interestingly, both Sarah and Amo mentioned this, and it's not planned at all, but I was absolutely going to say, having worked for many years in Leicester, Birmingham, and cities across the Midlands, I have never come across a structure of cultural champions that, or call them what you will, but lead teachers that can effectively advocate and practically build arts relationships and creative projects in schools. I've never seen that as successful as it is here. And I just wanted to flag, I know others have already, but to flag that up, because you guys teaching commentary may not realize it's not happening anywhere else. It's a real great resource. So please do continue to use it, you know, to engage with it. Or if you're a cultural champion and you find it's not best for you, pass it on to a colleague or something, because it really helps us on this side of the table as well to connect with you. So it's something to be proud of, and to keep working way beyond, hopefully, City of Culture activity. Anyway, so the website will have a place for you as cultural champions to kind of coalesce there, but also it will be a real repository of resources, CPD links, films, teachers packs. We've already building up quite a library of stuff that we've done already that will be there forevermore, and case studies and stories that we hope will be inspirational even when projects that they might be talking about have gone. So it won't just be a what's on, it will be a place to share sort of CPD evidence, to share stories and feedback. When will it go live? The page, I'm basically writing the content for it at the minute. So within a couple of weeks, I will do a thing round to everyone to flag it up and to start looking at it. It's not far off. It's me writing the copy, basically. Okay, so that's that. So I thought I'd just flag that up as coming soon. I'd like to highlight just sort of 2 or 3 projects that are coming up that I'm going to let you know about. And the first one of those is a really fascinating outdoor interactive thing called Observations on Being. This has been on our website for a while as The Tides Within Us, which is the previous name of the company responsible of just sort of changed the title of it, Observations on Being. Essentially what it is a really spectacular indoor and outdoor kind of virtual reality and digital journey that you go through that basically matches the rhythms of the body to the rhythms of the natural world. Spectacular, massive scale projections that take us through a breathing journey through the lungs, or through the way that the oxygen moves through trees, for example, in the natural world. It's going to be housed at the Charterhouse Heritage Park in London Road Cemetery, inside some buildings and outdoors as well. So groups will go around it in smaller subdivided groups, kind of carouseling around. And there'll be a schools resource. It's for ages 10 plus, probably more suitable to older ones, but we thought it might fit quite well for that end of year 6, at the end of term, couple of weeks when activity weeks and things like that are taking place. It's not online to book yet, but details of booking will be released the week beginning the 12th of April. Just quite a special green flavored project. So that's coming up, Observations on Being. Also wanted to highlight Contain Strong Language, which is the poetry-based project from the BBC, which is a wide-ranging 3-day festival of spoken word poetry performances. There's some specific bits which will be of interest for schools. A quick heads up on a show called Plot 17 by Apples and Snakes, a hip hop garden show, which there will be a Saturday performance for families. It's an outdoor thing. It really tours coming out of a horse box, actually. But we'll be looking for a school or two to take that and park that in the playground and have that for school audiences during the day on the Friday and possibly the Thursday as well. So that won't be available to hundreds of you, but if anyone's particularly interested in that, let me know. Other schools things around Contain Strong Language, developing a poetry trail of a kind of listening post, a digital thing where you can listen to poems that along the course of the River Sherborne. And we're producing a schools friendly little piece of work that shows you where to drop off and how to follow that trail along. And heads up, it's not announced yet, so I'm not really supposed to tell you, but there will also be a really interesting young poet laureate position, which is a proper 2-year position for a young poet laureate aged 13 plus. There will be workshops around this, and we'll be looking to people to apply for it and go through a process, and the appointment will add up for some really interesting opportunities for the lucky winner. So I will be mailing schools specifically about that. We're really keen to engage schools, helping get the message out. Any young people that are interested in poetry or are creating their own lyrics, there's a really interesting opportunity coming up there. And some schools already engaged in the BBC Radio Club, which is a broadcast poetry project that's continuing. So Contain Strong Language, we have lots of chance to go and see and hear stuff, but those are a few kind of school-specific things I just wanted to highlight. So I mean, now I'm rattling through. I don't want to take up too much time, but all the slides, of course, will be available on the film, or I can send them separately should you want them. So just 2 more slides. We'll have a look at a couple more things. One is the walk. Now, you might have heard of this spectacular giant puppet, Little Amal, who is literally walking across halfway around the world, really, and will be with us. Originally, she was going to be here in June. She's now coming on the 27th of October, which sadly, nothing to do with me, it's just the way it has to fall, is now in half term. That's a bit of a blow, but we will be producing some resources around this project to promote internationalism and the themes of refuge and identity that go with it. One of the teachers actually from one of these meetings from Earlston came up with an idea about a project which we're going to run with. I've just found I've got a little bit of money to do this. So we're going to create some footprints of welcome messages promoting internationalism, different languages, a kind of visual art project that we hope to decorate the route, which we don't know what the route is yet that this puppet is actually physically going to take. But again, just a heads up, I'll let you know more about that. That's a project that kind of anyone could join in with, but especially we hope that schools along the route, when we know it, will decorate their outsides maybe with these footprints. But as I say, you'll be able to follow that journey digitally anyway, and resources will be there. 2 schools, Broad, Heath and Edgewick, took part across February half term in a pilot project called Passports of Kindness. And essentially, the passport is a physical thing where we ask young people to actually just celebrate some random acts of kindness that they may have done to family, friends, whoever. And the passport is a hard copy document, and they can draw on it, write in it, have a little diary entry, and also put stickers on page to mark the different acts of kindness that they've done. Following the pilot project with those 2 schools, we're currently rolling this out to over 3,000 children through the Holiday Activities and Food Programme, which is great. And we've got money to do this for, I think, just about every primary school in the city that might want to join in with it in the summer term. So again, I'll be sending more info, really. It's something that you could do in school or could send as a kind of half-term thing, or put online as a homeschooling activity should we need to go back to that. But more information coming. But any primary school that wants to engage with that, we should, fingers crossed, have enough packs printed to be able to do that. There's supporting films and things that go with that as well. And just finally then, many schools here are involved in the Coventry Moves project. We've had nearly 80 schools sign up to design flags, 12 schools working on larger banners, other schools working on adding a soundtrack to the event. The reason I'm just mentioning it here is that the project will have extra life. We've been working with Coventry Digital, so we've developed a self-upload capability so that all designs that are done through this can be uploaded onto a website. So we'll end up with a gallery of thousands of these flags. And what we've asked young people to do is to look at supporting materials and design a flag that celebrates what they think about Coventry now through different themes, and asking them to decorate their designs with one word. So to choose a word that sums up Coventry to them now. This will now be available going forward as an online resource that anyone can do. So they can read the supporting materials, they can have a go themselves, they can upload their design, and it will go on a gallery digitally to be there forevermore. And we'll just end up with hundreds of thousands of these designs, and it will be kind of marketable to schools. I know some schools that have done this with certain year groups want to roll it out again to other year groups, so that will be there as a digital thing. People will be able to do it and upload it directly rather than having a printed banner, upload it onto that platform. So again, that's basically ready to go. I'm just preparing a little how to use it device. And linking back to the web pages at the beginning, that's the kind of thing that will be on there as a digital resource, a little project that you can do moving forward. Because the city will always be there and people will always have a view on it, and whether it's a city of culture or not doesn't really matter, does it? There you go. Sorry to rustle through just a few highlights. More is on the way, but as I say, I'm still putting stuff out every couple of weeks, so just keep an eye out for that.
Great, thank you. I don't think we've got any questions. I think someone's just harped back to the creative partnerships where it all started for a lot of us here in Coventry, this cultural and arts education partnership. And I think we all think of that very fondly, and it does seem to be embedded into the pedagogy of the work that is still happening in the city. So yes, hopefully there is opportunity for that kind of work to continue to happen. What we're going to do now is we're going to move slightly into different realm. We're going to ask you now to help us to start forming our thoughts and opinions and hopefully actions in response to two other key priorities for the Cultural Education Partnership. And in order to help us to do that, I'm going to invite two wonderful people to give us a small provocation to help stimulate those conversations. So we're going to hear from Susie Murphy from the Positive Youth Foundation, and also Taryn Story from Coventry University, who also sits on the Cultural Education Partnership Steering Group. And after that, I'm then going to invite you to join a breakout room, and you will be able to choose which one you want to go in, where there will be a short facilitated conversation with Taryn or with Susie and her colleagues about those two key focuses. I'm also going to share with you, while they're speaking, a link, and this is a link to a Jamboard, which is kind of like an online whiteboard, so that you can all contribute your thoughts and your comments live as the conversations are developing. So there's no pressure, but if you don't want to speak, that is another way of communicating your responses to us. So first of all, I'm going to hand over to Susie, who is going to talk us through her provocation for Youth Voice.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you, Sarah. So those of you that don't know me, my name is Susie Murphy. I'm Senior Manager at Positive Youth Foundation. And yes, we're looking at Youth Voice now. We've made a few waves into the Youth Voice agenda already with the CCEP, as we ran a pilot back in 2019. I usually refer to 2019 as last year because I feel like we've all lost a year. But I mean, first of all, if you're not aware, Positive Youth Foundation is a charity and social enterprise in Coventry. We've been here for over 10 years. Some of you in schools may have referred into us before. So we offer incredibly targeted support for those young people facing challenges or who may be struggling in mainstream services, including schools. And then we also have a broader open access youth work offer to young people right across Coventry. You may also have heard and known PYF through the Coventry Youth Partnership, which is a membership that we founded, which coordinates and supports deliverers of youth work services in the city. There's around about 30 organisations in that membership. In the context of CCEP work, PYF also offer advocacy and consultancy services when it comes to youth-centred approaches. Amo previously said something like, I'm not an expert in this, we just do a lot of it. And actually, I feel quite similar in that it's not everything youth voices and everything that we do at PYF, but it's certainly embedded across the organisation. So why is youth voice important? I mean, I think that's, you know, that would be teaching us all to suck eggs. We all serve young people. We all agree it's important. I think what's problematic is that sometimes we're not able to look outwards and gauge how does our offer, so in third person, how does that compare to other people's offer? And there are so many considerations needed to be taken. Is the value exchange right? You know, is there just as much benefit for those young people in that room offering, you know, their feelings, their thoughts, sometimes, you know, very vulnerable feelings and thoughts? Is there just as much benefit to them as the school in getting out some outcomes from those sessions? Is there a representative group of young people involved? So do you feel like those voices in the room truly represent the wider group of young people you're looking to serve? And do we all have a setup that is able to sustain this offer? You know, we build up a lot of momentum towards these youth voice programs, but you know, you raise the hopes and aspirations of young people only to be dashed if you can't sustain those. So essentially the question is, are we youth voice ready? So that's what we're going to be looking at in the breakaway room. Just go to the next slide, Sarah, please. You know, in the CCEP, we piloted a number of youth voice approaches to see how some of these could be adopted by the CCEP moving forward. This included a plan of activity to facilitate a whole series of youth discussion events. This was over a 2-month period. We looked at considerations on how to work with a broad range of young people moving towards an engagement strategy at the end of it. We looked at how young people can generate ideas and programs that could then be fed back into the CCEP, and actually how does that flow work? Does the CCEP serve the young people's ideas, or do the young people's ideas plug into task and finish group ideas? Then submit findings from a trial activity plan and make recommendations going forward. In the first instance, it was really important that all invested stakeholders collectively agreed on youth voice intentions and values. So this was regardless on whether this was part of a pilot or whether this would be embedded in the CCEP moving forward. This was the agreed intentions and values: a clear intention to value young people's voices, a desire to hear young people's responses to the task and finish priorities, acknowledge an indication that a broad range of young people would be suitable for involvement, including EYFS. In fact, with the pilot, we did actually stick to secondary age group, but we'll go into a little bit more detail of that in the breakaway group. A need to capture some impact and learning from this pilot, a desire to find out how young people wanted to contribute to the CCEP agenda, you know, removing this from a room of voices, of adult voices, and find out how do young people, and you know, they want to contribute. And most of the time, certainly at our organisation, the most innovative ideas come from young people themselves. And it was important that all approaches could be embedded into future plans. So this culminated in a conference that we ran at the end of the 2 months pilot. On the next slide there, Sarah. And this actually is also evidence that, do you remember the previous time when people used to come together in rooms and actually chat and listen to each other? So over these 2 months, we had 28 young people involved, aged 18 plus. It was 7 different schools and colleges who worked with young people previously before we created a core group of young people who then came back together and fed back their findings at the conference. So yeah, so I guess in terms of a provocation, it's more of a question. And the question is really how close to your own schools come to offering, a similar well-constructed youth voice opportunity for your students. And what could we do maybe as individuals or as a collective or as outside entities to help support this. In the breakaway group, we'll have a little look at the details of the findings from the Youth Voice pilot and of the subsequent recommendations that we made after that. Okay, thank you.
Brilliant, thank you very much. So lots to think about there. Okay, we're going to hand straight over to Taryn, who's going to talk to us, give us a provocation about continued professional development, CPD.
Hello. Hi, nice to see so many faces. We have funding to develop CPD as part of the CCEP PI money, and we want to look at how we use this to support the development of Coventry's creative curriculum. And we're really just at the beginning of the journey. And as part of this journey, we really want to be having a conversation with cultural champions about ideas for this, how we take it forward, what you see as important, particularly in light of post-pandemic and how the landscape's changed. So what has changed? What do we now, what would you like us to be developing? During the pandemic, during the latest lockdown actually, we began to look at how we might create the equivalent of the 100 Brilliant Ideas book, but to do with CPD, and maybe not 100, we might not get there, but to use that idea of very short clips, 15-minute CPD ideas for the classroom. And I'm delighted to say that we've actually produced one of those now. Thank you very much to Highly Sprung for who are in the process of doing it, nearly finished. And we've got another one in the pipeline that's under discussion. So I would like to show you a clip of that and begin to talk about the provocation afterwards. So Sarah, do you want to just show that? That'd be great. Thank you.
And today we're going to look at the quote that inspired the creation of Urban Astronaut, which was a Native American proverb, which said, "Only when the last tree has been cut down, the last fish has been caught, and the last stream poisoned, will we realize that we cannot eat money." So with handography, we take certain words through the passage, the monologue, whatever it may be, and we physicalize them. So let's start. So only when the last tree has been cut down. I quite like the word only because it makes me think of it's only going to happen once. It's there. So when I think of it, I think of the O and the only. So we're going to go like that. Okay, so let's all try that together. Lovely. So only when the last tree has been cut down. So Sarah, can you come up with something, a tree?
Maybe we could wrap our hand around and grow up like a tree.
Lovely. So only when the last tree has been cut down. Cut down. Have you got anything for cut down, Emily?
Maybe we should bring it down.
Lovely. Our hands straight?
Yeah.
Lovely. Okay, so let's try it from the beginning. Only when the last tree has been cut down. So now we've got the first three moves. Let's start thinking about the last fish being caught. Sarah, have you got anything for fish? Because normally when we think of fish, we think of it moving through the space or through the water. We don't necessarily want to create that mime. So have you got anything that we could do?
Maybe if we create a much bigger version of that movement, so the fish just goes like that across our body.
So it almost comes into the shoulder as well.
Yeah.
Okay. Only when the last fish. Emily.
We could catch it, has been caught. So we catch it and bring it into our side. Nice.
Lovely. Let's put those together. Last fish is caught. The last stream. Sarah.
So streams are usually long channels of water. So if we go stream.
Okay.
Nice.
Straight out.
Yeah.
Stream. Poisoned, Emily.
We turn our hands over and like the fish being upturned by polluted water.
Nice. So we've got stream, poison. Let's try and put those together. So we've got only when the last tree has been cut down, the last fish has been caught, and the last stream has been poisoned. Well, we realise that we cannot eat money. What could that be? So we cannot eat.
Maybe we can take our hands up to our face like we're kind of eating something here. So if we go right, left, right,
So
left.
we're taking away the idea of sticking something in our mouth. We're still keeping it as representative of that, but we're taking it down here. And actually, I know that you actually use that move in Urban Astronaut.
Yeah.
So I quite like that. So coming down. So we realise we cannot eat money. So money, let's think about how we represent money. So yes, we've got this, we've got this. And that's quite a universal sort of thing. When I'm abroad, they do that a lot. So could we use that in some way?
I'm wondering, because money isn't really anything, and especially in this, you can't eat the money, whether it's like it's nothing.
Nice. Could we rub our thumbs into fists?
Yep. Nice.
Lovely. So will we realise we cannot eat money?
Okay, lovely. Thank you very much, highly sprung. So that's an example of about a 10 to 15 minute video. It's 10 minutes of practical work, and then there's 5 minutes of just looking at ways that it can be used in the classroom, context, all that sort of stuff. So it's a little package of sort of a stimulus really for quick ideas that you might like to use. So that's one of the things that we've begun to look at developing. The second one we've got is actually an early years puppet video, which is looking at really aiming at teachers of 3 to 5 year olds, and it's a really very simple video, which would be a tabletop video of how to make a very simple puppet, and that's going to be part of a puppet project that we're looking at with City of Culture. It's hopefully going into one of the parks in June. And alongside that, we're looking at creating a story bag as well. So what might go into the story bag, and animating what goes into the story bag, or things popping out of the story bag. So that's the plans for that. So they're the two we've got going at the moment that have sort of come out of lockdown. But what we're really interested in is, what would you like? What are your ideas? And the ideas might not be just for these 10-minute stimuluses. It's really a case of, what do you feel post-pandemic in the recovery that you as teachers and artists now actually want? What are your CPD needs? So that's my provocation really, is begin to have that conversation with you about what you'd like to see develop in Coventry to support the idea of a creative curriculum. Okay.
So there we go. Those are your two provocations. We have youth voice provocation and we have CPD. What I'm going to ask you to do now is to select which room you would like to go into. I've put the link to the Jamboard into chat. So if you can see that, you might have to scroll up a tiny bit, open the link. That will allow you to contribute your ideas, opinions, comments, and you can use sticky notes like Post-its, or you can actually write text directly. And you'll be anonymized as well. So it doesn't ask you for your name. It doesn't ask you to sign in at all. So then we'll be able to share that with people outside of the meeting afterwards, and we'll send a copy to you as well. So I'm going to open the rooms, and then off you go, select. Hello. It looks like everyone made it safely back from their breakout room, which is always a relief. So thank you very much for your contribution. We're just going to quickly summarise some of the main points of those discussions. So I'm going to ask Susie and Taryn to just give us a little bit of feedback before we finish up for today. So Susie, if you wouldn't mind just giving us a bit of a summary,
Just
please.
a very short one from us. We had a very small group, only 8 of us in total. A good span though over primary, extended learning centre artists and policy leads. I'm going to send out a bit of literature to everyone that was part of the session today, just so they can have a little look at some of the work that we did as youth voice work, because it's one of those, it's a bit like safeguarding, it's everybody's responsibility, you know, and all of this work that we're looking at and we're doing, it starts with the young people and it starts with their voices. So we need to make sure that we get that right. So I guess I'm ending on a piece that says, I'm reaching out to everyone here today and saying, please do give your feedback in regards to where you feel we are with Youth Voice, because it's all very, very valuable for the next steps moving forward.
Brilliant. And that's kind of, I think, exactly what we wanted to hear, an opportunity to really galvanize everybody around these key priorities and make sure that we are meeting the needs of our young people. And we don't know the young people as well as our teachers do. So that's really interesting to hear, and glad that it feels like we're at the beginning of an important journey. Thank you, Susie. Okay, Taryn.
Well, we began with beginning of a conversation really, which was fantastic, and I felt there was a lot more that would have come out if we'd had a bit longer. But some sort of headlines of stuff that came out was that the idea of those short videos is very welcome, and looking at what they might be and also who might create them. So one of the things that came out was that looking at how those short videos may be used to deal with making the core subjects creative, and really looking at how you might use them to teach English and maths from Key Stage 2 onwards. Looking at how it might actually rich opportunities for actually looking at Coventry families and Coventry as a city, and Coventry voices in terms of the multicultural aspects of Coventry. And that might be actually getting families, getting voices that aren't heard in Coventry that can go into the classroom, because Joanne was talking about families that used to go in, not being able to do that now, and actually those voices could be part of a CPD video, and it could be that what we're creating is short clips also to go directly to children, supported by actual CPD activities. Then we looked at, in terms of how we might celebrate diversity and how we might teach diversity as well. Creating a bank of resources was something that was really welcome, and that it's a Coventry bank of resources, and that actually some of those resources come from teachers themselves, and that teachers are already looking at how Richard was talking about how he's been supporting the idea of printmaking and different art forms within the school, but actually looking at how we might create CPD videos with teachers to support teachers across the city. And again, going back to that sort of 100 brilliant ideas, that these can be really short, but just how we might share skills that way. Lisa mentioned the teacher network meetings and how getting involved in those in terms of having a voice in CPD is really important as well, and they're just starting up again post pandemic really. And part of that is looking at sharing best practice, again looking at how teachers can get involved in creating that as well. How we might support parents through CPD was something that people were interested in as well. So how we might actually begin to look at how we cascade things out. So how we create CPD to look at how teachers might support parents. I think that was you, Kate, wasn't it, who mentioned that? And then also this idea of intellectual processing, that in terms of how you might help teachers who do not normally teach creative subjects look at how they might use creativity to teach a subject like geography or history or maths, and actually what that process is, and actually being interested in working with artists to unpick that process about how they might approach a topic and how we might actually do that. We began to look at how we might do that. So a really wide-ranging discussion, and I think there's lots more discussion to be had. So thank you everyone, and let's keep going with talking about it because it's quite exciting. Thank you.
That does sound like a very rich conversation. And I think what's really important is that the reason we chose to do this today, to have these conversations, is because we want to take these discussions further. And we don't feel like this is the job of the steering group for the Cultural Education Partnership. We feel like this is the job for everybody. And we will be creating formal working groups to help develop these conversations and turn them into action plans. But that is not something that we want to be exclusive. We want that to be inclusive, and to make sure that if you are passionate, if you feel you want to add your voice and your energy and your time to these particular focuses, that we would invite you very much to join those working groups. And we'll make sure that we put more information about how we are progressing in formulating those groups in the next newsletter. So again, I'm going to go back to where we started and say, if you aren't receiving the newsletter, please do let us know, because it's our main sort of form of communication between you and us. And the Cultural Education Partnership is not a you and us, so that was probably a bit wrong to say that, but it is, we want to be able to take your ideas forward, your thoughts and your opinions, to guide how we shape a strategy for the partnership between arts, culture and education in the city to benefit our children and young people. So I'm going to say a massive thank you to all of you for attending this afternoon, right at the very end of the spring term, which has been full of adventure and challenge, and hopefully some joy seeing those young people coming back to the classroom. We're hoping for a really positive summer, a summer of building confidence, a summer of learning how to be together again, and looking forward even more to the development of more culture and arts activity happening and being more accessible over the next few months as we continue to tread this roadmap to recovery. So thank you again. We're going to just play you out with the music that we started with, which is from Coventry's Sound Lab, and it's called Songbirds, and it was developed during lockdown. So as we wish you goodbye, I'm going to hope that you maybe stay for just a couple of minutes to hear the fantastic music from Sound Lab Cov.
Cage songbirds just wanna be free. Cage songbirds just let them be.
Being trapped, with nowhere to turn. All I see is chains. All I'm seeing are my mates. Losing the key, struggling to be free. Hearing cage songbirds cry from their cells, wanting to flee for their lives.
We look for the darkness in here, searching in the blinding light. Like the end of a tunnel, like the end of a tunnel. Or a friend you haven't talked to in a while. We ignore the warm days inside, thinking about the freezing night. Life could feel so tiresome, life could feel so tiresome, staring at the same floor.
My escape from the world, my second family. A group of young people spreading a message to play. We're lost in the ocean, in a stormy dark sea, the boats of emotions and floating debris.
We make up negativity to block out all positivity. It's time to make a change, time to do things differently. Hey, songbird, singing on telephone floors. Hey, songbird, wanting to be born. Hey, songbird, hearing young people call. A virus is waiting outside our door. Life feels like you're all alone in the middle of a storm. Thoughts reflect and the glass shatters. Thoughts reflect and the glass shatters. Want to run into the thick and lonely. All here together, that's all that matters.
looking for change, speaking out for freedom, yet just look at us, strange. We speak out for a choice and move in society, diversity and hope, no more anxiety.
We stand for unity, armed with our creativity. It's time to make a change. These songbirds can't be caged. Hey, songbirds, singing on just on flow. Hey, songbirds, wanting freedom for all. Hey, songbirds, hearing young people call. The virus is waiting outside our door.
Our generation is a voice demanding to be free, shouting out for our freedom. We speak out for a change, having hope for society, equality and truth. We are our own authority.
Hey, songbirds just wanted to be free. Now you've let them be, they can fly further from the tree.